Alright, right here I'm going to be talking about clean and unclean food. This is Leviticus chapter 11. It says, say to the Israelites of all the animals that live on land, these are the ones you may eat, and you may eat any animal that has a divided hoof and that chews the cud. There are some that only chew the cud or only have a divided hoof, but you must not eat them. The camel, though it chews the cud, does not have a divided hoof. It is ceremonially unclean for you. The hyrax, though it chews the cud, does not have a divided hoof. It is unclean for you. The rabbit, though it chews the cud, does not have a divided hoof. It is unclean for you. And the pig, though it has a divided hoof, it does not chew the cud. It is unclean for you. You must not eat their meat or touch their carcasses. They are unclean for you. Of all the creatures living in the waters of the sea and the streams, you may eat any that have fins and scales. But all creatures in the seas or streams that do not have fins or scales, whether among all the swarming things or among all the other living creatures in the water, you are to regard as unclean. And since you are to regard them as unclean, you must not eat their meat. You must regard their carcasses as unclean. Anything living in the water that does not have fins and scales is to be regarded as unclean by you. These are the birds you are to regard as unclean and not eat because they are unclean: the eagle, the vulture, the black vulture, the red kite, any black kind of kite, any kind of raven, the horned owl, screech owl, the gull, any kind of hawk, the little owl, the cormorant, the gray owl, the white owl, the desert owl, the osprey, the stork, any kind of heron, hoopoe, and bat. All living insects that walk on all four legs are to be regarded as unclean by you. However, some insects that walk on all fours that you may eat, those have joined legs for hopping on the ground, and these you may eat: any kind of locust, kitted, cricket, or grasshopper. But all other flying insects have four legs you are to regard as unclean. You will make yourselves unclean by these. Whoever touches their carcasses will be unclean till evening. Whoever picks one of their carcasses must wash their clothes, and they will be unclean till the evening. If you think that all this disappears because of the New Testament, you are wrong. It clearly states in the New Testament, Matthew 4, verse 17, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them." That means everything that he said in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, in the Old Testament, never went away because of the New Testament. He just came to fulfill them. Everybody thinks just because there were covenants in the Old Testament, that since Jesus came and died on the cross, that he went away with it. No, that does not say that here. That does not. It says, "For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, nor not the smallest, or not the least stroke of a pen, but by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. Therefore, anyone who sets aside one of the least of these commandments and teaches others accordingly will be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever practices and teaches these commandments will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven." If you think you can just take some man's word of advice for it and not really look into it to yourself, if you think that you have a golden ticket, or if you think that just because you're saying, oh, Hail Mary, this and that, that you're okay and going to heaven, no, that's not it. You have to literally go and follow everything that the Lord commanded. Everything that it says here, you do not eat unclean animals, you follow the Sabbath. You know, look what they did to the first person that broke the Sabbath, and that's one of the commandments. Keep the Sabbath and remember to keep it holy. They stoned him. They literally, everybody in the camp stoned him. Breaking the Sabbath is literally a direct defiance towards God, because the Sabbath is God's day of rest. It is literally what he did on the seventh day. It literally goes back to the beginning of the Bible. The beginning of the Bible right here. On the seventh day, God had finished the work that he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating he had done. That is the Lord's day. You defying that is literally, you are going to be put to death. Literally, that's what it is. And if you think that you don't have to follow the unclean and clean, or if you don't have to follow any of the commandments, or if you don't have to do any of the feasts or anything, then you are sadly mistaken, because literally this is literally the Lord's ways, and this is all what the Lord has said himself. Literally, you look on all this and it says, the Lord said. Literally, that is what he specifically came out his mouth and commanded people to follow. If you don't do that, then how can you follow it? How can you even love him? Like, how can you do that if you can't do any of these simple things, like eating unclean and clean animals? How can you do any of that? How can you be in the kingdom of heaven and still, like, that's mixing? You cannot mix. That it says do not mix. I can't remember where it says. I should have found it, but it says do not mix. I think it, but yeah, I just had to feel like I had to make a video of that.